They say rock bottom is the foundation upon which we rebuild our lives. I never imagined mine would come in the form of a champagne-soaked betrayal, laughter ringing in my ears as the man I loved stood still, watching me fall not physically but emotionally, professionally, spiritually. But what they didn't know was, I don't stay down. And the day I walked back in hand with the man who owned the very empire they tried to crush me in, the silence spoke louder than their laughter ever did. My name is Alina Moore. I used to believe in loyalty, hard work, and the kind of love that withstood storms. I was the quiet engine behind Ethan's rise in the corporate world. While he networked at rooftop bars and grabbed coffee with female clients in tight dresses, I was pulling all-nighters helping him polish his presentations, solving his team's crises, and quietly stitching up the image of the man they all praised. For 5 years I was his shadow and his spine, until the day he decided I was dead weight. The shift began slowly. Missed calls. Cold dinners. Comments like, "Don't be so dramatic," when I brought up how distant he'd become. But I kept brushing it off. After all, we were both busy. He'd just been promoted to VP at Stratos Capital, a Fortune 500 firm, and I was in line for a lead designer role at Blackwell & Lane. Life was happening. We were just tired. Or so I thought. The unraveling came on a Thursday afternoon. My boss, Mr. Levin, called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable, like someone forced to deliver a death sentence. "Alina, I'm sorry. We've decided to move forward with someone else for the creative director position. You're talented, but there were concerns about your professionalism, about your attitude." I was stunned. My portfolio was immaculate. My reviews were glowing. I had led the last 3 campaigns to national recognition. Concerns? From who? He looked away. "You know how the industry is. Word travels. Maybe take some time off. Come back fresh." And then it hit me like a slap. 2 weeks ago at a charity gala, I had excused myself early after seeing Ethan laughing a little too intimately with Betrayal Westwood, my supposed friend and a junior designer at my firm. I had brushed it off as paranoia. I shouldn't have. That night I sat alone in my apartment, pieces clicking into place. Betrayal had always been eager to know which clients I was pitching to, what strategies I had planned. I'd even once helped her polish her portfolio. My kindness, my loyalty had been the rope she used to climb over me. And Ethan? He didn't just let her do it. He handed her the matches while she set fire to everything I had built. A week later I received the final blow. I walked into Ethan's office at Stratos to surprise him with lunch. His door was slightly ajar. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. But what I heard made my blood run cold. "Alina's too soft. She doesn't know how to play the game," Betrayal's voice purred. Ethan chuckled. "She was useful. Polished my work, made me look good. But she was never meant for the top. She crumbles under pressure." There was a pause, then laughter. Muted, cruel laughter. I stood there frozen, lunch bag dangling in my hand like some tragic symbol. I turned and left, heart pounding, mind racing. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead I began to plan. Step 1. Disappear. I left no dramatic goodbye. Just a simple note on the fridge: "Don't worry about me. I won't get in your way anymore." I deleted my socials, blocked their numbers, and left the city. I spent 6 months in silence, licking my wounds in a small coastal town 2 hours away. But I didn't waste a single day. I enrolled in a short executive MBA program, rebranded my design portfolio, and started freelancing for luxury brands under a pseudonym. I learned new things: strategy, negotiation, influence. But most importantly, I learned how to play the game they thought I couldn't. During one of my consulting gigs, I met Marcus Sterling. He wasn't just anyone. He was the CEO of Stratos Capital, Ethan's boss. A man known for his sharp mind, colder demeanor, and a quiet respect for people who carried themselves with grace under fire. He reviewed my work quietly during a presentation. After the meeting, he pulled me aside. "You've got talent. But more importantly, restraint. Ever considered coming back to the city?" I tilted my head, a small smile curving my lips. "Actually, yes. I have unfinished business." Marcus offered me a role, creative lead for a new luxury campaign they were launching. He didn't know about Ethan. Not yet. But I didn't need him to. I wasn't there for favors. I was there for leverage. We worked well together. Too well. He respected my ideas, trusted my instincts, and listened. Really listened. For the first time, I wasn't someone's sidekick. I was the force behind the vision. And then came the gala. The annual Stratos fundraiser was the social event of the season. Invitations were coveted. Media would be present. So would every executive, every competitor, and every social climber in the city. Marcus turned to me 2 days before the event. "You've earned the spotlight, Alina. Walk in with me." I blinked. "Walk in with you?" His lips curved slightly. "Let them see who's steering the future." And so I said yes. The night arrived, gilded in luxury. I wore a custom black velvet gown with a daring slit, my hair swept up, diamond earrings catching the chandelier light. As the car rolled to a stop outside the venue, the cameras flashed in anticipation. Marcus stepped out first, tall and imposing in his tailored tuxedo. Then he extended a hand to me. I stepped out. And silence fell. Inside the ballroom, heads turned. And there, near the champagne fountain, stood Ethan. Betrayal on his arm, laughter bubbling from her lips, oblivious for a moment. Then she turned. Her eyes met mine. Laughter died. Ethan followed her gaze. His glass slipped slightly in his hand. Because I wasn't the forgotten ex who crumbled under pressure. I was the woman walking in with the man who signed his paychecks. The gala was a symphony of muted gossip and clinking glasses. As Marcus and I moved through the room, I could feel the eyes on us, whispers flowing like electric currents in every corner. "Is that Alina Moore? With Marcus Sterling? Didn't she vanish after that fallout with Betrayal? She looks dangerous." Good. That was the point. Marcus remained composed, his arm gently resting at the small of my back as he introduced me to executives, board members, and influential investors. "This is Alina Moore, creative lead for our upcoming luxury division. The woman behind our new vision." Each introduction chipped away at Ethan's carefully constructed world. And he felt it. I saw him across the room, shifting uncomfortably as his colleagues congratulated Marcus on finding such an asset. Betrayal, usually smug and composed, looked like someone had poured acid into her champagne. But the real fun began during dinner. Marcus and I were seated at the head table naturally. Ethan and Betrayal predictably were placed just 2 seats down. When the waiter poured wine into my glass, I smiled politely and turned to Marcus. "I heard the Blackwell campaign you're funding is still looking for a lead designer," I said loudly enough for the table to hear. He nodded. "Yes. We were looking externally, but I think someone right under our nose may be perfect. What do you think?" I tilted my head. "If it's who I'm thinking, I'm sure she won't disappoint this time." Betrayal stiffened beside Ethan. She was the current lead on that campaign. She also knew she wasn't supposed to. Marcus glanced briefly in her direction, then turned his gaze to me. "Let's discuss it Monday. You've got an eye for talent, Alina." Ethan didn't touch his food after that. While Ethan and Betrayal had assumed I had vanished in shame, I had been working behind the scenes, consulting for several companies that had long-term partnerships with Stratos. Marcus wasn't just impressed by my talent. He had seen my ability to solve problems others didn't even know existed. And more importantly, he noticed my discretion. Over the past few weeks, I had quietly advised him to investigate discrepancies in a few marketing reports, ones that had Betrayal's name on them. I never accused. I simply raised questions. He took the bait. 2 days after the gala, I was called into Marcus's office. "She's been inflating numbers," he said flatly. "Presenting old data as new performance metrics. Her projections are overestimated by at least 30%. I let my lips part in mild surprise. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." "I'm not," he said, his tone sharp. "Thank you for flagging it. She'll be removed from the campaign. I want you to lead it, Alina. Full creative control." There was victory, not loud or petty but absolute. Ethan found out later that evening. I knew because he texted, "Ethan, we need to talk. Please." I didn't reply. The next morning he was waiting outside the Stratos building when I arrived. "Alina," he started, voice low, "what are you doing?" I raised a brow. "Succeeding." He flinched. "Why, Marcus? Are you sleeping with him to get ahead?" There was the fragile male ego, shattering. I gave him a slow, amused smile. "No. But maybe I should have tried that with you." Would have saved me years of ghost editing your presentations. He stepped closer. You don't belong here. This isn't who you are. No, I agreed. This is who I became after you showed me who you were. I walked past him, leaving him standing there, rejected and powerless, the same way I had once stood outside his office with a lunch bag and a breaking heart. Marcus wasn't subtle when he removed Betrayal from the project. He called a team meeting. I'd like to formally announce a leadership change, he began. Effective immediately, Alina Moore will be assuming full creative direction of the Blackwell campaign. Betrayal looked up stunned. But he cut her off. We discovered discrepancies in your reporting, Betrayal. This isn't personal, it's about competence. I sat beside Marcus, calm and composed as the room absorbed the news. Betrayal turned to me, eyes brimming with rage. You did this. I met her gaze. You gave me the match. I just lit the fire. Cornered men are dangerous. And Ethan was cornered. 3 days later, rumors began to circulate. Whispers that I had gotten the promotion through manipulation, that I had been cozy with the CEO, and that I was exploiting Marcus's trust. The PR team called me in. Someone's leaking stories. They're painting you as unethical. Marcus handled it before I could. He scheduled a press release. A formal public statement naming me as head of creative strategy across all global accounts. He called me a rare blend of vision, precision, and ethics. He then sent a company-wide memo condemning internal sabotage and ordering a formal investigation. That memo was Ethan's death knell. The last time I saw Ethan at Stratos, he wasn't in a glass office with a city view. He was in the HR wing, carrying a box of personal items, avoiding eye contact. He passed me in the hallway. For a moment we both stopped. His eyes searched my face, pleading, tired. I didn't mean to hurt you, he whispered. I smiled softly. Then why did you laugh? He opened his mouth but no words came out. I walked away. Some falls aren't meant to break you. They're meant to wake you. Mine? It woke a storm. After Ethan's quiet dismissal from Stratos, the air around the office shifted. The whispered speculations and darting glances were gone. In their place came something else. Respect. Not just from interns or assistants, but from the very men and women who once dismissed me as Ethan's shy girlfriend. Now I was the woman they addressed first in meetings. The one Marcus deferred to during strategy calls. The architect behind Stratos's newest and most profitable campaigns. But while my professional life soared, I knew the game wasn't over. Because Betrayal was still out there. And snakes only shed their skin when they're planning to strike again. 1 week after Ethan's exit, I received an anonymous email. Subject: you should see this. Attachment: screenshot _489.jpg. My pulse quickened as I opened the image. It was a cropped photo of Betrayal sitting across from a rival firm's director, Gregory Park, an ambitious, ruthless executive from Vaxen Strategies, a company that had spent the last year trying to sabotage Stratos's client roster. And there she was, smiling, handing him what looked like a confidential campaign folder. I stared at the screen, lips pressed into a line. Of course. She hadn't just sabotaged me personally. She was feeding intel to our competitors. And that was treason. I didn't tell Marcus right away. I needed more. Over the next few days, I traced Betrayal's digital footprint. Every client dinner, social tag, and LinkedIn connection. Quietly, I enlisted the help of one of our IT analysts, Jake, who owed me a favor after I covered for him during a failed project months ago. He didn't ask why. Within 48 hours, I had what I needed. Emails. Audio clips. A record of files downloaded onto her personal drive. Not only was Betrayal working with Gregory Park, she was actively attempting to poach clients mid-campaign. She thought she was clever, disguising her betrayal in NDAs and ghost accounts. But she forgot, I used to help clean Ethan's messes. I knew how to bury things. And now I knew how to unearth them. Instead of confronting Betrayal directly, I invited her to a private meeting. She arrived at the conference room in a crisp cream suit, lips glossed and smirk intact. Alina, she said, sitting across from me without invitation. To what do I owe this little reunion? I folded my hands neatly. I wanted to give you a chance. Her smile twitched. A chance. To explain yourself. Before Marcus sees what I have. For the first time her composure slipped. What are you talking about? I slid a single printed photo across the table, the one of her with Gregory Park. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked it up. You can lie to me, I said, voice cool. But lying to Stratos's legal department won't go well for you. She stood abruptly. You don't scare me, Alina. Just because you climbed into Marcus's good graces doesn't mean you're untouchable. I leaned back in my chair, calm, collected. I don't need to be untouchable. Just louder than your lies. 2 days later, Marcus convened a board meeting. Brielle was escorted into the room last, expression tight, her lawyer by her side. Marcus didn't waste time. He laid out the evidence. Her file transfers, meeting records, correspondence with Gregory Park, and breach of contract clauses that spelled legal catastrophe for Stratos if we hadn't intercepted them. Her lawyer scrambled to spin the narrative, claiming misunderstanding, no malicious intent, and career confusion. Marcus's voice cut through the room like ice. You didn't just leak our strategies. You targeted one of your own, attempted to discredit her, and sold us out for personal gain. You're done here. And just like that, she was escorted out, this time not to her car, but to the sound of camera shutters as a waiting journalist broke the story. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I simply stood, gathered my folder, and walked out, head held high. You'd think after a career-ending disgrace, Ethan would have moved on quietly. But some men are too arrogant to read the room. He emailed me again. Ethan, I messed up. Can we meet? I ignored it. Ethan, I lost everything. But we were good once, weren't we? This time I responded. Alina, you didn't lose everything. You gave it away. Starting with me. His reply came almost instantly. Ethan, I didn't laugh to hurt you. I didn't know what to say. You were always too good for me. I see that now. I stared at the screen. A part of me, some small battered part, remembered the early days. The Ethan who brought me coffee during deadlines, who held my hand on the subway, who once whispered that he couldn't believe someone like me loved someone like him. But that man was gone. And the one who remained didn't deserve a single word more. Months passed. Stratos launched our luxury campaign to record-breaking success. My team expanded. I was offered equity. Marcus and I, though constantly under gossip-laced scrutiny, remained professional in the boardroom but quietly close outside it. He never overstepped. He never assumed. He simply respected me. That was more valuable than any romantic gesture. One evening, as we walked out of the building together after a late meeting, he asked gently, "Do you ever regret it?" I glanced at him. Regret what? Walking back in. I let the silence settle, then replied softly, "No. But I do regret staying silent for so long." He nodded as if he understood more than I said aloud. A year had passed since the gala. Since Ethan's fall. Since Brielle's exposure. Stratos Capital was thriving under its new direction, and I had just been named Chief Creative Officer, the first woman to ever hold the title. It should have been enough. But a funny thing happens when you finally reach the top. You look down and realize your story isn't over. It's just changing chapters. Mine. It was just starting to get interesting. It was a crisp Friday morning when I received an invitation to speak at a global summit on business resilience and innovation. I hadn't expected to be nominated, let alone selected. But Marcus only smiled when he saw my reaction. "You've earned this," he said simply. I packed light and flew out to Geneva, where the summit was being held. The venue was extravagant. Think polished marble floors, silk banners, and views of snow-dusted Alps out every window. On the second day of the summit, as I was prepping for my keynote, I received a message from one of the organizers. One of the last-minute panels includes your former firm. A discussion on ethical leadership. I blinked. Blackwell and Lane. My old company. The one that had thrown me aside without a second thought. And who was listed as their representative. Gregory Park. The same man Brielle had once leaked our campaign to. The same man who, rumor had it, was now clawing to re-enter the industry after a quiet but brutal lawsuit involving data theft and breach of trust. The pieces were moving again. I sat in the back row during the panel, sunglasses on, notebook in hand, silent as a ghost. Gregory wore his charm like a cheap cologne, still smug, still spinning stories. But I could see it. The desperate edge in his tone, the way his hands trembled slightly when pressed on ethical missteps. When the Q&A opened, I stood. The moderator gestured to me. "Yes, the lady in the back." I removed my sunglasses and Gregory froze. Alina Moore, I said calmly into the mic. Stratos Capital. Chief Creative Officer. A ripple of murmurs filled the room. Gregory visibly swallowed. My question is simple, I continued. What steps do you believe a company should take when its leadership knowingly accepts confidential data from competitors, then builds a campaign off of it? He shifted. I'm not sure I understand the context of your question. Oh, I think you do, I said, smile cool. But thank you for confirming you don't have an answer. The silence afterward was delicious. Later that night at the networking gala, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. It was Ethan. His hair was longer, a little unkempt. His suit was good but not tailored. His eyes were tired. And for the first time he looked ordinary. Alina, he said, as if saying my name alone could undo everything. I raised an eyebrow. You're a long way from home. He chuckled awkwardly. I heard you were speaking. I came for closure, I guess. I sipped my champagne. Closure is something people give themselves, not ask from the ones they betrayed. I miss you, he said suddenly. You were the best thing in my life. I didn't see it then, but you didn't see it because you didn't want to, I cut in gently but firmly. You liked how small I made myself to support you. You liked being the bright one while I dimmed. You didn't just let me fall, Ethan. You stepped aside and watched. He looked like he might cry, but I felt nothing. I wasn't angry anymore. I just wasn't his anymore. Back in New York, things continued to accelerate. Marcus and I had grown closer, not in a whirlwind romance kind of way, but something deeper, steadier. He'd never rushed me, never pressured. We shared power, respect, vision. One evening, after a long planning session for our expansion into international markets, we sat across from each other in the boardroom alone. The skyline shimmered behind him. You know, he said softly, you've changed the company. I smiled. And you let me. He stood, walked toward the window, hands in his pockets. When I met you, I thought you were brilliant. But I never expected to admire you. I stood too, moving to his side. Why? Because admiration means vulnerability. And I don't admire easily. We stood there in silence, the space between us buzzing with unsaid words. Then he asked, Are you happy, Alina? I turned to him. For the first time in a long time. Yes, I am. Months later, Stratos launched an initiative, a mentorship program for young women in business. I was asked to spearhead it. We held our first summit in the same hotel where I'd once seen Ethan and Betrayal together, where I had once stood broken. But now I stood tall on the stage, surrounded by bright, ambitious women who looked at me not as someone discarded, but as someone who had rewritten her story. After the event, a young woman approached me. Ms. Moore, can I ask you something? Of course. Have you ever failed so hard you thought you couldn't come back? I smiled gently. I didn't just think it. I lived it. She looked surprised. So what did you do? I stopped waiting for someone to catch me, I said. And I built the ground I needed to stand on. Months after the mentorship summit, Stratos Capital had not only expanded its creative empire but had cemented its place as an industry disruptor. Under my leadership, the company's newest campaign, The Fire Within, had gone viral across 4 continents. It was more than an ad series. It was a movement. A rallying cry for women reclaiming power, especially those who had been discarded, overlooked, or betrayed. The world was watching. So were my enemies. And I was ready for the final move. I hadn't seen Betrayal in almost a year, not since she was escorted out of Stratos after her betrayal was exposed. But life has a way of circling back when you least expect it. One rainy afternoon, I walked into a cafe near Bryant Park for a casual meeting with a potential client. As I placed my order and turned to find a seat, I saw her. Betrayal. She was sitting alone in the corner. No laptop. No planner. Just her, staring at her half-empty coffee cup like it held the answers to a life she no longer had control over. She noticed me and froze. I didn't approach her. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. But as I turned to leave, she stood and rushed over. Alina, wait. I paused. Her voice was thin, uncertain. Can we talk? I turned slowly. About what? How you laughed when I was fired. How you sat in rooms I built and tried to claim them as your own. She flinched. I was stupid. Greedy. I thought I was winning. And now, I'm unemployed. Blacklisted. No one wants to work with me. Her eyes filled with something between guilt and bitterness. They say I burned bridges. But you lit the match, didn't you? I tilted my head. No, Brielle. I just didn't shield you from the fire you started. She looked down, then whispered, you won. I shook my head. This was never about winning. It was about surviving. And you made sure I had to. I left her there in the same silence she once forced me to walk through. Ethan's last message came the night Stratos was nominated for Global Creative Firm of the Year. Ethan, I saw the campaign. It's brilliant. You're brilliant. I'm sorry. No excuses this time. No gaslighting. No manipulation. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. And for once I believed him. I didn't reply. Not because I hadn't healed, but because there was nothing left to say. Some people are part of your story to push you into the fire. Others are there to show you that you were born with flames of your own. Ethan was both. But his chapter was over. The awards night arrived. Marcus stood beside me, calm and commanding, his hand resting gently on my lower back as we walked into the grand ballroom. Photographers clamored for pictures. Flashbulbs lit the room. Somewhere in the chaos I heard someone whisper. That's her. Lena Moore. The woman who took down her rivals without raising her voice. As the ceremony began, names were read, speeches made, applause thundered. And then, this year's Global Creative Firm of the Year goes to Stratos Capital. The applause felt like waves crashing against the walls. Marcus looked at me smiling. You should take the stage, he said. I hesitated. Come with me. We walked up together. When I reached the microphone, I took a breath. I once thought being discarded meant I didn't matter, I said, my voice steady, strong. But I've learned that being underestimated is one of life's greatest gifts. Because when no one sees you coming, they can't stop you from rising. Applause filled the room. But I wasn't finished. This isn't just a win for me. It's a win for every woman who's been called too soft, too emotional, too much. Let them laugh. And when they do, build so high they can't even see you anymore. The standing ovation was a blur. But Marcus's smile, that stayed with me. Later that night, away from the cameras, we sat on the rooftop terrace of the hotel. New York stretched out before us like a glittering crown. You were magnificent, Marcus said quietly. I glanced at him. So were you. You never questioned me. Never tried to clip my wings. He turned to me. Because I knew from the beginning that if I stepped aside and let you rise, you'd take us higher than anyone else ever could. There was a pause. Then softly he asked, what do you want next, Alina? I looked out at the skyline. I want to build something that outlives me. I want to turn my scars into blueprints for others. And then I turned to him. And maybe for once, I want to choose something that's just for me. His hand found mine. No grand gestures. No declarations. Just presence. Steady. Exactly what I'd been missing all along. I never needed to scream to be heard. I never needed to beg to be chosen. And I never needed to fall to rise. But I did fall. Hard. And now I'm proof that what they meant to destroy only made me unstoppable. So to the girl who once sat outside an office with tears in her eyes and a heart full of shattered glass, you did it. And to the ones who laughed, you gave me the silence I needed to find my voice. And now the world listens when I speak. The end.